Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chief Outsiders CEO Growth Talks. And I'm thrilled to welcome Phillip Edwards, the CEO and founder of multitracks.com, right here in Austin, Texas. So you guys might get tired of meeting executives in Austin, but I don't, because there's some really awesome ones. Welcome, Phillip.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you here today.
Oh my gosh. I guess right out the bat, explain to folks what multitracks.com is.
Okay. Well, multitracks.com is the name of our company. I can define what a multi-track is. In 2006, we were one of the first companies, if not the first, to release multi-tracks into a marketplace for download commercially, and we serve worship teams and churches. When I got started, I thought, look, this would be great to take the actual multi-tracks from artists and make them available for worship leaders to use in their church services. And so that's how multitracks.com was born. A multi-track is the individual parts from a record. So think of drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, vocals. A normal multi-track would have all those individual parts that make up a recording. So it's basically everything minus the lead vocal so that you can use any individual part to add into your worship team. So let's say one Sunday morning, the bass player is sick and can't make it, or they just don't show up. Whatever the problem is, you've got the bass guitar from the record that you can add into your live sound, live performance. So it fills in for the missing gaps, if you will. So a multi-track, think of it as a noun. It's a thing. It's a digital product that you can download. But many of you may know the term multi-tracking. That's a verb, and that's what the Beatles did. They were one of the first ones to do it back in the late 60s. You can multi-track a recording. So the earliest recordings were like a single microphone in a room and all the musicians gather around it. Beatles started 4-tracking recordings. So they got the drums separate, the bass separate, maybe a guitar and vocals separate. Today, we multi-track to the tune of 20, 30, 40 instruments sometimes. And in our space, we just went to all the record labels and said, hey, can we have a copy of those? And would you separate them out so that musicians and churches all around the world can use them? And they were crazy enough to say yes. So that's how we got our start back in the mid 2000s, really 2005, 2006.
And let me jump in. This is not a little business. And I'm thinking just here in Austin, there's smaller churches, which obviously there's fantastic benefit because you can have a bigger, more predictable, more worshipful sound for that band. But then mega churches are using it right here. And how big is your footprint around the globe?
That's a moving target because we have churches of all sizes, and then we have individuals who buy products from us as well. So we have many tens of thousands of accounts of varying size and degree. We do have a footprint around the globe. So we're, of course, in the US and in all English-speaking territories. So Canada, Australia, UK, and anywhere around the world that would speak English. Then we also have a good footprint in Latin America. We've been in for 10 years. Brazil for Portuguese speaking, and of course, Portugal and other. We really go by language, right? So Portuguese, then French, those have all been around for 8, 9, 10 years. We just launched last summer in South Korea. And we just signed 3 more brand managers in territories yet to launch, but all very important and very exciting for multi-track. So those should come in the next year. So that's our plan, is just to keep serving different territories with the same technologies, but hiring brand managers that can localize what we do for different territories.
You're a very special business leader because you're obviously entrepreneurial, because you came into this literally coming from the user space. You've been a worship leader for a long time. You saw the need, but then you had the acumen to develop this. Those familiar with the Growth Gears book that my partner and I wrote, there's 2 kinds of CEOs. There's those that are market oriented and those that are operationally oriented. And the ones that are market oriented are going to grow faster than their industry peers. You are basically in a technology business, which puts you in a place where you have to be market oriented because things change so fast. The observation is that you've made it through a lot of the difficult stages in size of employment and revenue hurdles. What I know about you, because I do know quite a bit, you just keep having big plans about bringing new ideas to the marketplace. I mean, where does this come from?
Yeah. So I was our customer And that's how I started the business. I was a worship leader in 2005, and I had the idea for the business because I was building tracks myself. So I thought, look, somebody's got to do this. I knew just enough not to know how hard it was going to be. So I went around. Maybe that's why I was smart enough to ask the question, but maybe dumb enough not to know all that I was going to face. I feel like I just really stayed focused throughout the years in what our customer needed because I knew what that was because I was that person. So I raised a little bit of money, got the company started, built a website. We recorded 30 or so tracks and then began to go to the record labels and ask them to participate. And so the first part of my journey definitely took some time. That wilderness season was early on in the company's history and my career, but at some point we hit a trajectory where we started investing in software and we learned that part of the business. Then we started building an ecosystem and trying to tie everything together. So if you came to us, you got all your needs met. And I think that's been a big part of the latter part of our momentum in these last few years. But to answer your question, how do we keep coming up with new ideas? I think it's because we were a company full of people who were once our customer, who have joined this team to keep solving those problems. Our mission statement is to save worship leaders time for what really matters. So we're focused a little less on, though the dollars matter, it means people have voted that we're doing a good job. We're focused we're focused on that, but a little less on that and a little more on what is each unique piece of impact is the next succession in how we need to serve our customers.
So do you rely solely on your employees' experience as a customer, or how do you reach out? How do you stay in touch with the wants and needs of your customers?
So we have a pretty healthy product team that stays connected to a good sized support team. And they meet once a week and they're talking about what we're hearing firsthand from customers last Sunday. We categorize all the feature request list. What's great about our product is this is for worship leaders on a Sunday or music directors. This is how they do what they do. If they're using us, they become pretty reliant and they receive a lot of value from our ecosystem. I could probably even just for listeners tell you a quick explanation of what that is. So we have customers who are preparing music for a Sunday morning, so they're running tracks. They also have charts that display what to play. There's an app for both of those sync together. We also can trigger lyrics on a screen, but also connect that to how to run lights that could be changing in time with the music. So we've created this synchronized stage or connected stage is what we call it. So because we're so integrated into a Sunday morning, we also hear back and people let us know. They tell us what they love. They tell us what they don't love. They will tell us what they're missing. So we have a pretty long feature request list from our customers because they're such, I think, big fans of what we do. We really try to stay close to that data and let it inform how we grow. One of our core values is customer-driven innovation, and we really want to prioritize customer feedback even over any internal stakeholders.
Yeah, and you have a pretty serious competitor, pretty good size with pretty good pockets. How do you keep track of them? How do you respond? Are you ahead all the time? Is it a yin and a yang? You're in a competitive, really tough competitive situation, aren't you? But still, your both entities are really doing quite well, yes?
Yeah, I think in our unique space, we've always been the leader in the track space. Although there are different competitors out there, I feel confident we're pretty uniquely positioned in that space. Now, we did a couple of years ago move into a space that was somewhat new for us. It's the licensing space. In churches, a long time ago, there were hymnals, which are still are today, but conceptually, hymnals a long time ago was all there was. The idea of the publishing or the lyrical component in a printed book, that's covered. But when you start displaying it on the screen, there needed to be a way to cover the song publishing or the underlying lyrics in a song. There's an entity a long time ago that solved that problem about 30 years ago. They're called CCLI, and they brought a solution to the market. But from our perspective, there hadn't been a lot of innovation in that space for quite a long time. People had to report manually by keeping track of the songs that they sing every 6 months. keep track of your songs, enter them in one by one on a website. In 2022, 3, we just thought this is a bit archaic. So we already know all this data. What if we got into this space? And yes, there was some pushback or concern. An industry that's doing so well, do we need another player in that space? But the great news is that through many conversations, we were able to convince the industry, not only do you need this, but it's going to serve customers really well. It allowed us to get into a new space that we're in today. And that licensing
That's
space
part
is
of that.
growing for us.
Yeah, and it's part of that full package. And COVID triggered things too, because all of a sudden,
Yep.
churches that weren't streaming, as they'd had a congregation now, in order to technically keep the virtual doors open, they had to stream. That's actually a different component to the licensing than.
That is. Yeah, there's a lyrical component, then the ability to use a multi-track in a live stream. That's just another activity that wasn't licensed, but we came up with a license for that. That was really a gratis license, was free for everyone during COVID. We bolted on those rights that were tied to the multi-tracks they were already using. So it's a complicated world of song publishing and master licensing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we gave an all-in-one solution that was comprehensive, it was transparent, required no customer to manually enter in data. And what's exciting is now this other entity has changed everything they do as a result of how we enter the space. And it all is customer driven and benefits the customer in the end. So yeah, we're in that space now, and that's growing really well.
And one of the things that just fascinates me is you mentioned that there's the single user, there's small churches, and then there's mega churches. And having been a customer of yours in our church, which is a small to mid-sized kind of congregation, but it's not just, hey, I can turn on the bass if I want to. It's, I can bring in all that presence of a produced track to a band that is made up of all volunteers. And just trying to get through some charts, and some guitarists are playing camp chords and others are trying to find the hook. But to be able to dial up the choir or the gospel singers in the background, if you do it just right, the congregation thinks it's their voices anyway. They never, ever get the sense that you're with tracks, but they get a better experience and they're
That's right.
drawn in, they engage deeper. It's a little bit magical what you guys have pulled off here.
Well, yeah, I was fascinated to learn a long time ago that most touring professional musicians are doing this. Even when you go to a U2 concert, you have the Edge on guitar, but he recorded 3 different parts on the record, maybe 4. But when I went and
it's
saw
not
them
just
at
his
the
echo
Sphere,
box that's taking care of that.
no, when I saw them at the Sphere, you think that all they put through those speakers was what was live,
Yeah.
and you have these incredible visuals for every song that have to be perfectly timed. They aren't just walking and randomly starting these songs whenever they want to. They have a click track that's clicking in their ears that's keeping them all perfectly in time. And they have a voice, and I've heard you could Google it and find U2's leaked monitor mixes, but they have a voice cueing them in for every section, telling them what's coming next, because you're not leaving anything to chance, right? So you can just have a great time live and play, and you don't have to be worried about where am I in the song, what's coming next. You just have that cue always telling you. What I believe it does, it creates a freedom for everybody to play together. You rehearse with your parts ahead of time. You walk in, you're totally prepared. You're using industry standard practices for just about every live touring act. There may be some that don't, but by and large, if you're synchronizing a show and a stage and lyrics and lights, you're all playing in time with clicks. And if you went to Abbey Road and had an amazing orchestra record a string section, and you're not going to leave that part out, you're running those tracks because you can't just take the orchestra around with you live. So it opens up a whole new world of excellence and production, and the fact that it's helping churches for that experience. We love that.
That's great. Let's change chapters here. You have an amazing set of employees, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
They love what they do. They know there's purpose. They stick around. How do you describe the culture that you've created with them to create that atmosphere?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I agree. I'm biased. I think we have a great set of employees. We have about mid 80s right now. Some are remote, some are in office, probably 2/3 remote. So that's certainly something we have to be mindful of. But we do our best to keep the vision of who we're serving and why we're doing it up front. Our core values are healthy and high performing team. I mentioned customer driven innovation and execute with excellence. So on healthy and high performing team, we talk about things like the 5 dysfunctions of a team. If you know that book by Patrick Lencioni, great teams are built on trust. They're willing to engage in healthy conflict and make commitments, hold themselves accountable, and then you measure your success by results. And those 5 points, I think, are at the foundation of every great team. And for a long time, things like healthy conflict maybe were a little hard for certain team members, but if you can come into an environment where you can really say what you think is right and you can have conflict and not fear that, I think that makes a great environment and a fun place to work. And it makes the product the end goal and not the individual who said it. I don't know if we have one thing that makes our place a great place to work, but I think those values influence it. Excellence isn't perfection, but it's giving what you have, it's bringing your best. And I think we have a team that is passionate about why we do what we do. And a lot of our team uses our products, which is a bonus. We're bought in.
Patrick's model and the table group's model in the book is called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but isn't it interesting? And there's certainly countless organizations that have read the book as a group and they kind of had a wake up call and went, oh my gosh, we've got some work to do here. But then a younger company like yours sees this model as a way to build excellence. Did you tap it because you thought we needed to fix something, or did you tap it? You say, hey, wait a minute, this is a model for excellence.
Yeah, actually, it was probably 2014, 15, 16, maybe 15 and 16. So a while ago, but we had a leader on our team that was given some real influence in the company, but it became apparent that individual was building a bit of a faction unto themselves. And it was hard. We went through probably a tough season of trying to figure out how do we navigate as a leadership team. We were a young team. We'd never encountered that. And those principles we had to go through, and we probably spent a good year in content from Henry Cloud, Patrick Lencioni. What came as a result is there was one leader that we knew needed to leave, but the rest of our team got pretty tight and pretty strong together.
Okay.
And all those guys are still here and part of my senior leadership team today. I'd read that book on a church staff, and then I picked it up in the middle of that incident, and I was reading a whole new book, because of what I was living through.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've gone on to make it a big part of our culture, and we just teach it methodically as part of onboarding, as part of Team Week. We have guests from Table Group come in every year as a part of our annual Team Week event. And we just immerse ourselves in that content. Ideal team player is another one.
Yeah.
Humble, hungry, and smart. So that's what we're looking for in every team member.
In our business, the advantage is the ultimate altogether guidebook. And what guides our culture is Patrick's book called Getting Naked. Have you read that one? It's really,
Haven't read that one yet.
it's really addressed to consultancies.
Okay.
It's the first book we send to a new hire at Chief Outsiders, and it's been
Nice.
fantastic for more than a decade.
That's awesome.
So, wow. Well, so as the company's growing, what's the hardest thing to keep on the rails with this guidebook? And does the culture get strained? Is it other organizational challenges? Where do you feel the strain? Because you guys are growing well, you're having great success, but
Yep.
what are the things you have to pay attention to?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, I think it's easy to want to chase after the next shiny thing. So I try to be really careful not to do that. And also, as we grow, we can do more things, and we are. I just came out of a budget meeting for next year, and so we've got some real fun things planned, and we've been investing in a couple of key things that are about to launch that have been methodical and taken over a year. But I think we have a standard. We don't want to do something halfway, but at the same time, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So I think it's only after the last 10 years of real growth and maturity that I feel like we've reached where we need to in the software tracks ecosystem of things. We're going to start to step outside of that only now. And so I think that has been a challenge at different times, not trying to do too much or build too wide. But I think what's great is we know our customer and we know what they need, and being able to step into some new spaces next year, I think will be fun. But we have the foundation to be able to build upon to really do that well.
with these steps that you might take, are they to get more of the same kinds of customers? Are you looking at a completely different customer sets, or is it all of the above?
With everything I just mentioned, it's just bolting on another need that we're solving.
Okay.
Um,
Does that
yeah,
make you more attractive to the organizations you haven't already reached, or is it?
I think it's expansion revenue for the people that we're already serving. It's a good bit of that. I don't think it makes us more attractive to new audiences. I will say we're in a lot of the bigger churches, a lot of the tech savvy churches. We are having conversations about how to reach the broader market, which is a lot of smaller churches.
Mhm.
And we're doing that successfully. But how do we find them? How do we make sure that they know about us? We're always thinking of creative ways to do that. But it's still the same market, still the same customer.
So we maybe just covered it, but what's next? That's what's next. Is there anything else that's next that we should be watching for from multitracks.com?
Yeah, we'll be announcing a number of new things next year. As far as what can I say that's next? Oh, I should do another podcast with you.
Okay, when we get some news to share,
And I'll be able to share a lot of new things.
or maybe to close, Philip, what's your greatest personal challenge right now? You got the business, you've got a beautiful family. How are you developing? What are you working on yourself?
It's a great question. I think that I love this company and I'm uniquely wired in the visionary side, but I still do a lot of the operations side. I would love to hand that away to someone else right now. It doesn't feel like that's the right time, but I see that coming. Being able to continue to give away more and more parts of the company that I'm doing today, I think is an exciting thing. It's a challenge that's right in front of me as to when and how and who, but that's going to open up new opportunities for me to expand in some of these new areas. It's the only way I'll be able to do it. But from a leadership team standpoint, I don't have an operations person. I'm CEO, COO. I don't have a board that I'm responsible to. I'm not raising funds. So a lot of the typical CEO responsibilities I don't have on a day-to-day basis. Beginning to venture into some new areas and then hand day-to-day operations away is something that's on my plate for the future. It's probably my biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, well, good for you to have that awareness. Well, Philip, it's been great spending some time with you. I know everybody that's listening and watching has enjoyed this immensely. For those of you, because I'm sure there are folks that are also your customers that are listening and watching, like me, that are passionate about what you and your team have pulled together. If you haven't ever seen the studio tracks that Multitracks puts on, what do you guys call that? The studio
Sessions. Yeah.
studio sessions. You have artists come in to your own studio, and I think it's the best of intimate semi-acoustic. Okay, you don't always go, it's not like a live performance, even though it is live within your studio, but it's a studio performance, so intimate. I would offer that up to everybody to check out multitracks.com. For that reason alone, check out their studio sessions.
Thank you. Yeah, they're on YouTube. We've got Brian and Jen Johnson and the Bethel team coming in for the first time in a couple of weeks. So we're excited to host them and it's on our YouTube. But Pete, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to connect with you and thanks for all your encouragement over the years and for being a customer. And it's really awesome. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time on CEO Growth Talks.